You're listening to the NABS Now podcast, brought to you by the National Association of Blind Students, a proud division of the National Federation of the Blind.
Hey everyone, you're listening to the NABS Now podcast. Today we're talking all about traveling. I know we all have missed vacationing and getting to travel all around these last few years because of the pandemic. And so today we have decided that we're going to do an episode all about planning and executing the perfect vacation, work trip, or whatever you might have in store for these summer months. So let's get right to it.
I'm Kyle. I am a student at San Francisco State University. I am studying computer information systems and considering staying for a master's degree in orientation and mobility.
Hi guys, my name is Skye and I'm a student at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I got my undergrad in criminal justice and graduated about a year ago and moved right into a master's degree in emergency and crisis management, which I am currently just about halfway through. And I work both developing curriculums for the university as well as working at a local nonprofit here, teaching blindness skills to in-house residents. So yeah, nice to talk to you all.
Okay, so our first question is a fun one. I want to hear about your favorite trip or vacation and just like all the details about it, so we can start this off on a exciting note.
I'm gonna have to say one of my favorites was actually just last month. I went to DC, and while I was there, I also took side trips over to New York City. I got to spend 2 days there, and I also got to go to Boston for 3 days, and both of those were new cities for me.
And cold.
Yes. There was snow, which I don't get at home, so I had fun with that. My friends who were from DC were very unimpressed with the snow, but yeah, I had a lot of fun just kind of exploring the cities, doing some touristy stuff, and also, just taking transit around the cities because that's something that I find fun.
Yeah, I do not, but I give you all the props for just getting on new weird subways. What about you, Skye?
I'm totally with Kyle. I love the public transit, especially because here in Vegas we just have buses. We don't really have any proper rail systems. Right. Yeah, it sucks, especially when it's 120 out. So whenever I visit a new city, I will get on their public transit just because I can. But my favorite trip was actually going to Canada. I'm a Canadian, so I'm from Edmonton, Alberta, and I traveled back there for the first time about, it was either 4 or 5 years ago. And it was my first really big cross-country trip or out-of-country trip rather, where I was able to go and be independent and travel by myself and do public transit and visit different friends and family and people. And I remember that trip really well because I just felt so independent, totally on top of the world. I think all blind students or young blind people have that moment where they're I actually can do this, and I did it well and I had fun. So yeah, that was definitely my favorite trip. And I did a lot of hiking, visited the city, just tons of fun, even though I got eaten alive by mosquitoes, but that's fine. We don't think about that.
The good stuff always overrides the not so fun part, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So this next one is moving more toward the theme of today's podcast. So when you're planning a vacation or even a work trip, what aspects of accessibility do you think about, and why do you think about those specifically?
Well, I usually think a lot about orientation and mobility in terms of where am I staying and can I get around, and how walkable is the city? Because I've visited some places where you cannot walk around and you think oh, I'm going to go to my hotel and I'm going to be able to walk to a store close by and get food. And I think finance is another thing when it comes to accessibility, because getting to a store close by and walking and getting food, or like having restaurants nearby that it's easy to access. That's definitely big. I'm cheap, so I like to go to like a store and like collect food, and it's nice if there's one close by and in walking distance to save some money. So that's always a big one. And then I do have to say transportation, I think for everyone is pretty big as well. So, is there Uber, is there Lyft, is there a subway, is there a bus system? Can I get on the bus system? Do I have to, is there like discounts for me? Stuff like that is always pretty big.
I definitely think about very similar things on transportation and, walkability of places I'm going. I have had instances where the place that I get to, I could get there by transit, but now I'm like in the middle of kind of nowhere and there's nothing to walk to from the hotel. So that's never a very fun thing. I want to be able to, get to a restaurant or a store or at least something fun to do. I am also one of those people that you'll pretty much only use like Uber or Lyft as an emergency form of transportation. I will take transit anytime it is available unless like I really need to get somewhere quick. So transit access at the places I'm going is a huge consideration for me.
Yeah, I know what I consider, because I have a guide dog, is does this city have grass? Because it sounds really funny, but my dog he does not like pavement for his parking needs. And so I've learned the hard way sometimes when there's like either like no grass or like fake grass. I'm like, this is not a good situation.
My dog is not a guide, but I've had that same situation.
Yeah, it's
because
not
she
good.
refuses to go on pavement. And she doesn't even like dirt that much.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Well, now that you mentioned that, it actually makes me think like one of the big things when you're a dog user, which I am, is how the public like reception you're going to get with your dog and access issues when it comes to like buildings. Because I've definitely found that depending on where you are, you're going to have different access issues. So, for example, when I travel to Canada, I have no idea why, but I always have access issues when I go there. Like I've almost been kicked out of Walmart, restaurants repeatedly, conventions,
so weird.
You name it. Yeah, I've had people, and it might be because I have a non-traditional breed. I work with standard poodle, but it's weird. And so when I travel sometimes, like for example, out of country in Canada, ID system is a thing for service dogs. So like I had to look at that and look at what I needed in terms of documentation, and that was really nice because it resolved a lot of the issues. So I know depending on where you travel, like if it's a smaller town and they're not used to service dogs and stuff like that, you might have access issues. So it's something to maybe bring ADA sheets that can like help advise people on what the law is and that kind of thing. Yeah, or the app. Any of that stuff.
So this one's kind of more of a blanket question. I know we can't get into all the specifics. It would be a whole travel class. But do you have any basic tips for navigating a brand new area you have never been to before? I know you guys already talked about kind of like mapping it beforehand and being like, oh, is there something nearby or not? But do you have any tips on stuff like that?
Okay, so I work with a lot of clients and do a lot of O&M. And if I can just like get one thing into their heads, it's don't be afraid to ask people questions. And I should say, like, if you want to know that you're like in a decent area, because you don't want to walk up to like some shady character and be like, where am I? But in general, especially like at your hotel or at the airport or something, it's totally fine to say, hey, are you local? Or can you tell me what's around here? Or can you give me an idea of where I can relieve my dog? And that's going to be the first step, because locals can always be very helpful. And if I'm lost, I just walk up to a random person. I'm like, can you tell me where I am? And I figure it out. So that's one thing. Using apps is great. Sometimes I'll look ahead of time at where my hotel is and the things around. I love Soundscape as an app. I use Soundscape all the time, and it tells you where local businesses are and helps you get to them. So having a really trusty navigation app that you trust. I also like Move It, MOVIT, for public transit.
That's a good one.
Yes. So all of these apps are things I love to use. I love to know ahead of time. Be My Eyes. I love that. I know a lot of people like Ira, but I'm cheap again. So Be My Eyes, like I will use whatever I can.
Budget.
I know, right? It's the life. I tell you. But yeah, having these backups, and then the more you travel, the better it'll get, the easier it'll get. So yeah, all those are just things you get more used to over time.
Yeah, I definitely always start with, looking at the location on a map, and seeing how many things are within, a certain radius of it. So maybe I'll, see what's within like 3 blocks distance, so that it's somewhat easy to get to when I get there. And also pay attention to where it is. Is it south of my location? Is it north of it? So that when I'm there, I can, if I am in a new location that I don't know, I can just kind of pop open my compass app and be like, okay, this is north. This is the way I want to go. And that's a great place for me to start. Also, again, definitely don't be afraid to ask those questions, because there's so many times that like you're completely lost and you think you went the wrong way, and then you ask, where is the Starbucks? And you're like, and the person tells you, oh, it's across the street. So you were very close, just not quite close enough to find the door. I also use different transit apps as well. Like Transit is one that all the cities that I've been to uses a lot. So I can get, timings and bus stop. As far as like bus stops and stuff, pay attention to what street it says, because like whatever the street that comes first is the one that it's on. There's been so many number of times I've been looking for a bus stop and it's like I'm on the wrong side of the corner because I'm facing the other street name, the one that comes second. So that can make a difference.
And for the love of all that is good, when you get on the bus, ask what bus it is, because there's like, especially in new cities, you don't know, but like sometimes like 4 or 5 different buses will stop at one bus stop. So you're standing there and you're like, okay, this is my bus. And then you get on like one that takes you way somewhere random and you're lost. And yeah, so learn from my mistakes.
Some Ubers for my mistakes. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I think that was a really great summary of what could definitely turn into a whole nother episode. We will see. But my next question has to do more with the touristy side of things. So have you guys ever asked for accommodations or received them for an attraction or an excursion? And how did you come to that decision and what was the outcome?
I would say the thing that I request the most is like if I'm seeing a show, then I may talk to the box office or an usher or somebody inside once I'm there, about if there is anything, any seats available closer that I could get to, because I do have some level of usable vision, and so I will, try to look at the show if I can. And it also means that there generally is better sound when you're closer. So both of those things add up to be beneficial. Many, many times they will have some seats either closer up that just didn't sell that they'll give, or in an ADA section that is, better centered for sound or more accessible of, you don't have to go up a flight of stairs or something.
And yeah, I agree that it's always good, especially when you're in a new venue, to ask. And a lot of the times I will ask for me, because I have a dog, if they have seating with a little more room on the floor. I will ask where I can relieve her, that kind of stuff. I also like to get a little bit of a rundown of the venue I'm in. So sometimes I'll ask if someone can just show me where like main things are. Like a lot of the times they'll have like a little coffee bar or a restaurant or bathrooms or emergency exits, all those things I want to know about. So yeah, often I ask. And ironically, I've actually had the issue, and I know all of us do who are blind, where I'll go and I actually don't need an accommodation, but sometimes people will like want to give me one. So for example, I remember visiting the Tyrrell Museum, which is a huge dinosaur museum in Canada. And they have like tons of big dinosaur bones and things like that. And we were waiting in line, and like the museum head came up and they're like, oh, you're blind. You can like cut in line and come up right to the front. And I'm like, I don't need to. My legs work fine. I can wait here in line like everyone else. And they insisted that I come up. So I've had things like that where I've had to like explain to people that I don't always need the accommodation. I'll ask if I need it. So yeah, that kind of stuff's always weird. But speaking of museums, I always like to ask in those instances if I can get someone to walk around and describe the exhibits to me if I'm by myself. And people are usually super accommodating in that way. and you actually usually get a lot of extra information, and sometimes they'll let you like touch the stuff, and I love touching things. So that's super fun. I'm a ride junkie, so I've been to amusement parks a lot, and accommodating with amusement parks can be a little tricky, especially if they don't have like kennels for the dog. But it's, again, just asking and seeing what can get done and what help you can have. So usually I'll like bring a friend with me and they can hold the dog and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's always about seeing what accommodations can be done and what can be reasonable. And
it doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the point I was getting at. Thank you.
Also, I want to go to a big dinosaur museum.
It's super fun.
God.
They have like a T-Rex and it's like 20 feet tall.
Oh, I want to go.
Yeah.
I'm like putting that on my travel list now.
Oh my gosh, you should do it.
That does sound super cool.
I know. I'm like going back to my inner child for a minute because I'm like, wait, dinosaurs, and instead of like the tiny exhibit we have here at the Science Museum.
Yeah, and they had like sound effects too, where like the dinosaurs are like roaring, and then they have like rooms with like tons of creatures in it, and you can like hear the creatures, and it's like
okay, we're
fun.
taking a field trip. We're gonna do a lesson in accommodations, and when you do and do not need them, we're just gonna go. We'll claim that. We'll go to the dinosaur museum.
Heck yeah, let's all go to Canada.
So do you have any tips for navigating airports? And again, I know this could be a whole episode, and we've touched on it in our holiday episode from a year or so back, but I'd like to revisit it briefly.
So, yes, I fly a lot. I'm like a travel junkie when it comes to flying. So, definitely, yeah, I love it. I was counting. My dog and I have been on like almost 30 flights. So
that's insane.
I know, it's crazy. We've flown so much. So, I always say like TSA cares is great. Especially if you have a dog, call them, let them know ahead of time that you're coming, or if you don't, because they're going to help you get through the line very quickly. And that is a time where I like to get through the line quickly because no one wants to wait in the security line.
Dogs cut lines anyway, so my dog like tries to run under the little gosh, guys, I can't remember what they're called, the little barriers,
the stanchion.
Yeah, and they can't see them. Because they're above their little heads.
I'm really lucky. My dog always stops for those. Not tree branches.
My dog is not tall enough. He doesn't see them.
Oh, he's little.
Anyway, so yeah, having a guide through that line is not bad.
It's an excuse, and then you can just go through. Yeah, I totally get it. So I say, like, I never, ever check in online, and that's just me. It's just a preference. But I like to go to the check-in counter, like give them my ID and stuff like that, get my ticket printed, and make sure and double check that everything's good with the flight, that it says that I'm blind on the ticket, that it says that I need assistance on the ticket, that I can double check that I have someone to get me from flight A to flight B if I have a transfer. All of that is really important to check ahead of time. So I usually say go to the check-in counter and then get someone from there to just walk you to your gate unless you know the airport really, really, really well. I'm in Vegas here, so our airport is really large and we have different terminals, and it's just stress I don't need. I will say that like sometimes they try to push you to sit in a wheelchair, and I like hate that with every fiber of my existence. So I will, if they like insist on it, I'll put my bag on the wheelchair and I'm said, there, look, you can push something. So I hate that. And I'll just tell my dog to follow the person. Yeah, it's awful.
Do you actually do that? Wait a minute.
I do.
That's
yeah,
really
I do.
It's like when they try to take your cane, and I'm like, no, I'm good. I would someone like tug of war for a minute, and I was like, I'll fight you over this. Like, I don't care that you're TSA.
Oh my gosh.
Take my cane. Not that I actually say that, but that's hilarious. I'm gonna use that tip next time for I think you made a good point too. Like, it's okay to ask for help, but it's also okay to be like, okay, this is too much help. Like, I don't need that. Thank you. Or I don't need to be grabbed. I can use the right and left directions, please. Like, stuff like that is important.
Yes, it's so important. And like going through security. Okay, once I actually put my cane through security, I folded it up and put it through, and they thought it was a knife. So that went well.
How
and
big of a knife? What?
I have no idea.
I've never heard that one.
That's
this
like a 4-foot+ tall knife. That's a lot.
Yeah. It was like, well, it was folded up, so I don't know what they thought. So we had to take it out, and then they got all embarrassed, and that was fun. With the dog, never, ever, ever let them remove the dog's leash from your hand ever. I've known a lot of blind people who they've tried to force the person to take off all the dog's gear, and they've tried to separate the dog and handler.
They'll beep anyway. I literally tell them, I'm like, whatever you do, like he will beep no matter what, because there's metal in every part of his Eunice collar is metal on it.
Exactly. And some of them are like, take off the dog's collar, take off their leash, take off their harness, like make them just totally
the dog to run circles in your airport because he likes open spaces.
Exactly. So yeah, be very firm about that, because I know a lot of handlers who've had a lot of cred around that kind of stuff, and like I'm not afraid because I know the rights that I have, and I know it could be very dangerous for my dog and myself. So there's more examples, not including dogs, but just know what you are and are not allowed to ask for, and don't let them be ignorant about those kinds of things ahead of time. So yeah, but other than that, and then I'll just wait at the gate when they put me there, or I'll ask for a Starbucks or food or something because I like eating. But yeah, it's pretty easy in general. And if you're really, really late for a flight and they don't have someone to walk you to your next flight, all you have to do is like ask a fellow passenger, and you're like, hey, can you help me get to this gate real quick? And they'll like help you. I've had to do that a few times. So there you go. I've talked a lot, but those are my
No, I think that's really good. I think it's good to know your rights, but it's also good to know what you're comfortable with, because some people like really enjoy airports and finding their gates by themselves, and that's totally cool. I know some people really enjoy that. Me personally, that stresses me out beyond belief. I love structured discovery. That is not one of those times where I like to wander around and find things without asking directions. But like everyone's different, and I know that about myself, that hey, this is going to stress me out. This is going to make my travel experience not so great today when I'm rushing around an airport with a dog, with a cane, with luggage. So like I know that. So I think it's good to know what you are and aren't comfortable with beyond like knowing your rights as well. Kyle, do you have anything to add?
Well, I am one of those people who will do structured discovery in the airport. And I will say,
I picked you guys perfectly. You guys are opposites.
I will say it has led to some very stressful transfers before when I was very short on time. But usually I try not to be so short on time. And that is the key that makes it where it's not so stressful for me. I've had plenty of instances of TSA being very unfamiliar of what to do with me, and or my cane, or usually, as they like to call it, my stick. Usually what I try to do, and they don't always take well to this, is to ask if I can get through the metal detector with keeping my cane, and then they can send it back through the x-ray machine, because they always like to put it through there.
I've never gotten away with doing that. They will not.
It may be different too, because I do have TSA pre-check. So I go through the metal detector, not the weird one that makes a bunch of noise and spins a thing around you. But yeah, I've even had one time where I got all the way through TSA. They never took my cane, and then they like ran up to me while I was walking away and were like, "Excuse me, wait, can you come back? Because my boss told me we're supposed to scan your stick." I'm like, "What? I'm already through." No.
Literally, that could have ended so much worse for them. I forgot to scan this for contraband. Sorry.
Yeah.
Wow. It's a little concern.
Yeah. So the route that I usually go is, once I'm through, then I will ask somebody, if it's an unfamiliar airport to me, hey, which way is gate whatever? And I'll just start from there. I'll, follow their direction, and then if I
give you so much credit, that sounds so stressful.
Yeah, well, along the way, and this is, the other key is, don't be afraid to ask other people for directions. So when you get to another split, or if you just feel lost, ask again, hey, where is gate whatever, or which way is, something else that is near it, maybe there's a Pete's near it or something. Or which way to, baggage claim after you get off. And people usually will give decent directions.
Yeah, passengers usually don't mind even like getting off the plane sometimes. Like sometimes you literally, I remember I followed, I just had a carry-on. I followed the pilot out of the plane because I was like getting all my stuff together, and it was a very, very tiny plane, and everyone else got off. I was in like the back. For whatever reason, it was a small plane. I think it was whatever, where, economy, budget seats. And the last people left on the plane was the flight crew because it was their last flight. And I walked through the airport with them. And I remember I was meeting someone and they were excited and they were like, "You just like walk out with the pilot?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah, cool. We're friends now."
Yeah, people in airports generally are helpful. I have definitely
everyone's
asked,
lost. Literally everyone's lost. There's no differentiation. Everyone is wandering around.
Exactly, unless you travel through that particular airport a lot.
Yeah. And can I just say that, Kyle, you brought up like a great point, because even if you ask for assistance, there's 0% chance that they're always going to be there. Like, I swear it's about 50-50 if they're actually going to be there when you get off the plane or not. So having the skills you're talking about is so important, whether you like them to do that or not. Yeah.
Yeah, I know people have often got stuck, being told, "Oh, well, you can wait here and we'll get somebody." But if you got a short connection, you don't necessarily have time to stand there and wait.
Yeah.
Well,
the one thing that I will do, once I'm to my gate, though, is I will usually pre-board, because that gives me a chance to, explore my area, my seat a little bit, and figure out, where to put my cane, because I do have a non-collapsing cane, and maybe ask a flight attendant where the nearest exit is, because while they're supposed to come to a special safety brief for anybody who pre-boards, that very much never happens.
Oh, see, I've always gotten that, and I had this really cool flight attendant who, and I don't know if they're supposed to do this. They might be supposed to do this, but she actually pulled on the oxygen mask and showed me how to put it on, because no one had ever explained that to me. And she's like,
I have never had that explained.
One of these? And I was like, no. And she's like, we probably should show you. Do you fly a lot? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, oh, we're gonna do this now. And I was like, okay. And she showed me and it's, I mean, you'd probably figure it out, but I'm like, if there was ever, God forbid, a crisis, that is probably something that I would need to know. And I'd never been taught that. But yeah, I've always had we all live in different areas of the country, so we might be working with some different airlines depending on where you are in terms of what's cheapest. But I've had super good luck with the airlines I fly with doing the safety and things and explain. I've even had them be so good as be like, okay, there's 2 wing exits. They're exactly 4 rows behind you, and this is 3 rows in front of you on the right. And I don't know, I've had really good flight attendants. I've never had a bad flight attendant. Knock on wood.
You are very lucky. I usually have to ask where those exits are. I have to ask,
that's terrible. That's in the back, not, that's in the front? The rules, I think.
I think so. But
that's crazy.
Yeah, and I've flown on a lot of different airlines too, so it's strange.
In all my flights, I've only had one flight attendant on one flight come and actually describe the actual safety procedures to me. So
that's crazy. I don't know why they. I don't know. Maybe they're trying to save the dog.
The other thing that I do once I'm on to the plane is, unless it's a little tiny plane and my bag really doesn't fit in the overhead, I will try to keep my bag with me. And that's another reason I will pre-board, so that the overheads don't fill up and they force me to gate check, because it is a lot easier for me to just keep my carry-on right above my seat than I have to go find it on some carousel in who knows what area of the airport when I arrive at my destination.
100% agree. In fact, I put something tactile on my bag. So I have this little owl, and it's like a little stuffed owl with a clip on it. And I put it on the handle so that when I'm feeling my bag, I can just oh, there's the owl. And I know that one's mine.
That's a really good point. That's really cool. We do that, and then also the luggage tags. You have tactile ones. But the other idea I got from someone is that if you ever need someone to help you locate your bag, even a fellow passenger, tie a very distinctive ribbon on the handle of your bag, and you don't even have to make a bow or anything. Just tie a little bit of ribbon, but make it as bright as possible. So giant red polka dots or whatever. And it's a very, very easy way to distinguish your bags, because usually you can see the handles on them.
Yeah, that definitely helps a lot, because I used to have a black suitcase that just looked like every other one.
Or get crazy suitcases. Like, I have a giant hot pink suitcase. So, like, that's a little, like, conspicuous. But still, there have been multiples like it. And I'm like, this is, like, you know, and then they hand you your suitcase and you have to, like, check for, like, the dent in the one spot or whatever so you know it's yours.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Carry-on is always best. Like, I've done a month trip with one carry-on bag, and that's for me and my dog. And we
How
like
in the world?
I mean, that's when I'm staying someplace where I can do laundry, but yeah.
Yep, I do the same.
Right?
Oh no, I like outfit variety.
Yeah, I travel light.
We only have one question left, so for someone who maybe wants to do their first solo trip or vacation, do you have any advice for them? Just kind of simple. Like, what would you tell them?
One thing that I've found is that if you are like a social person and you want to find other people to, you know, hang out with when you're there, hostels are always a great way to go because there, you know, are a lot of people probably around the student age as well there, who you can very likely find somebody else who wants to do the type of things you want to do in that city.
Oh, that's really a good one. What about you, Skye?
I always say, like, when you're traveling, you want to work your way up to bigger and crazier things. You don't want to start your first trip with, like, let's go to New York City or Washington, D.C. or something crazy. And then you just hate it and you have a horrible time. Like, start somewhere, if you're especially doing a solo trip, start somewhere where you've been before, if you can, like that you kind of know the area, you're a little more familiar so that it's new and that you're traveling there, but it's not so new that you're completely disoriented. And then work your way up, maybe go somewhere where you can meet friends. And like, you know, Kyle said, there's going to be people who want to do similar things that you do. So like traveling by yourself there and then meeting up with friends and then learning from them, especially people who have traveled often, is great. And then you can start doing things solo after that. But definitely don't just throw yourself into some crazy, wacky trip if you're unsure. I mean, you can, and it might work, but it might also be awful. So I always say start small and then build your confidence, and then you'll be traveling like a pro in no time.
I love that. I think I'm going to jump in only because I was really nervous about traveling before I did it. I would say plan as much as you need to feel comfortable, as much as you can be comfortable with something really brand new, but don't overplan to the fact, like to the point where it's not fun, because there's always that line between like living in the moment and not planning at all. And I'm a very type A person. I like to plan every last detail, but with traveling, some of my best and most stressful, but still the best experiences have been when things really didn't go according to plan. And that's where those like structured discovery skills come in, or like transit, or just being creative on things you want to do. And so I think it can be one of the most freeing things that you do when you like a plane takes off and you're alone and it's just like you and your cane or you and your dog. And it's like, oh, this is so cool. I think we're all like ready for that again.
Yeah, I very much agree. I'm not the type of person to plan out everything.
I could tell. Based on your answers, you're like, yep, I'm gonna find it eventually. It's fine.
Yeah,
I could not travel with you, Kyle. Sorry.
I will usually have certain things that, you know, I want to get to or do though, and so having, you know, some flexibility of if you realize, oh, actually, I'm closer to this other thing first, I'll do that first, or said thing you want to go to is closed, which is a thing that happens a lot lately. Then having, you know, some kind of backup plan also is good. Or just being willing to do whatever works.
Yeah.
See, this is the emergency manager in me, because I was going to say, like, my biggest thing when planning is just to have backup plans, have like maybe people in the area that you could contact if you get super stuck, or maybe there's like I don't know, some kind of blindness organization that if you're really lost, like, or you know how to like get a lift, or you know how to get their local version of Lyft or something, just so that you're not so freaked out that if something goes horribly wrong, you're completely stuck. Having that backup plan just makes you feel like more comfortable in trying new things and taking risks. So
Yeah, like how I mentioned before that, I'm one of those people that will use transit every chance I get. I but I always have Uber and Lyft updated to the newest app on my phone because there are plenty of times where you get somewhere and you realize, oh, the transit stopped earlier than I thought, or oh, I missed a bus and now it's going to be an hour wait for the next one, and that's just really not going to work. So don't be afraid to, use your backup plan to make things easier.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. This has been really fun. This was certainly a fun episode. It kind of makes me wish I was hanging out on a beach somewhere, but I hope that everyone enjoyed it, and I hope that you guys will join us for our next episode.
This episode was created and produced by Nina Marranca, Kinshuk Tella, and Seyoon Choi. Visit us on the web at nabslink.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/nabspage, on Twitter and Instagram at nabslink. Thank you for listening.